I think we are live. Hello and welcome to today's brand new stream. And please welcome the co-host, same as yesterday and the day before, Lauren. Hi.
Hello.
And like this, it says on the screen, today's topic is H.G. Wells and cautionary tales. So
Yes.
why is it cautionary tales, Lauren?
I
Why
think
have
it's
we named it?
because, well, we couldn't think of one particular story because he wrote so much and so widely. But I think one of the major themes of his work is always not so much should we do it, but if we do it, we'll do it badly. So
Ah,
maybe don't.
okay. So
So,
it's something like he in his, I mean, to put it in, okay, I'll try and rephrase it
mhm.
in my way. uh, he it's not, can I use the word predict again? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
gonna I
Yes.
don't know any synonyms for that. So I know yesterday you said something about speculating,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Yes.
I forgot the exact phrase that you used.
Yeah. Speculating on what could be, rather than prophesizing directly, rather than saying,
Correct.
"Here is a thing that is going to happen." What they're actually doing is going, I'm writing a story because I think this might happen.
Mhm.
So, but obviously from the future perspective, we go, but it did happen, so they must have known.
Yeah. So he prophesied that tremendous advancements in human technology, uh, but eventually they cause our downfall.
Yes.
So it's like both. He says that we'll go far, but then eventually it will lead us on the path to where we destroy ourselves. And so yeah,
Yes.
uh, I think there's one work, one of his last ones, or at least the one that he made a movie out of in 1936, which which starts with destruction and then has a
Ends with
happy
hope.
ending. Happy,
It ends with hope.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we'll come to that. Yeah. Okay. So H.G. Wells, born again like yesterday. Before we go, what are you sketching today?
I finished my train,
Uh huh.
which I don't know if I'll show you or not. We moved on. I'm doing the prompt for the painting group is called Story, so I'm doing a storyboard,
Oh, okay. So you're
which looks like
not
nothing
working on
today.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm painting that, and then I might do one later for another prompt for Grace, which is going to be dancing. So we'll see. We'll see where I get to.
Okay.
Trying
Oh,
different things.
Grace.
Yes, I think that was.
I love that
I'm
name
doing them out of
actually.
order. So.
I mean, I know it's a word, but
Mm.
every time I think of Grace, I remember it's a very I know, I mean, very unusual thing, but I always remember the movie Bruce Almighty, in
Mhm.
which Jennifer Aniston's character is called Grace. And that's kind of, I
Yeah.
always, I mean, that's, I think the first time I came across a person who with that name and was like, that's such a beautiful name,
My mum nearly called me
Grace.
Grace. She changed her mind at the last minute, so I was almost a Grace.
Oh. I don't know, I just find that like it just has a very
Yeah.
pretty ring to it. It's like Grace, such a
Yeah.
beautiful name. Hmm. Moving on, today's energy drink is green apple flavored,
Mm. Very sour.
very sour. Yes.
I have French Earl Grey
Hmm.
and water, a lot of water.
Nice. Hmm.
It is nice.
Yeah, I went through 1.5 1.5 liters of water during the day. I mean, it's
Yeah.
3 p.m. It's 3:30, past 3, uh, 3:30 right now. Okay, so Uh, H.G. Wells, born 1866. I think again we somewhere this is between the two previous authors that we went through
Mm,
yesterday and day before.
yes.
So again, this is much of his work that we'll be talking about is in towards the end of the 19th century, 1890s is when he wrote a lot. I mean, later on, I think it kind of tapered off as he became older.
Yes.
Um,
As things often do.
yeah. So he want. So let's. I think so. It's safe to say that 1890s that decade was his prime, at least in his career wise. So again, shall we go chronologically again today as well?
Aye, if you like, yes.
Okay, cool. So we'll start with the first novel. Okay, again, I haven't checked out his entire list. What's that? It's called what's it called?
It's
Bibliography.
bibliography.
Bibliography. Okay. So I maybe he wrote stuff before, but the first novel of his that we'd be talking about is the Time Machine. He wrote this when he was 29 years old. Uh, and it talks about time travel, like should be apparent from the title. And the have okay. First question: have you read this?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Uh, I have watched a movie which is based on this. It's a Hindi language movie.
Ah.
So if there are any Indians watching this, I'm pretty sure, or if you're in your 20s or 30s or above, excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry, thank you. Man, it came so soon. I didn't even have time to say excuse me. Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll have you people who are watching this. You'll have watched this. It's called Mr. India. It was a 1986 or 1987 movie, and one of the most popular lines. I'll just before we move on is from that movie is Mogambo Khushua, which means Mogambo likes this. That's kind of the line that the villain of the movie repeats. His name is Mogambo, so he refers to himself in the third person.
As all good villains should.
Yes, and he's like, oh, Mogambo likes this. Every time something, his minions do something for him, and he's very happy. So that's kind of his line, catchphrase. And okay, so in that movie, until today I did not know that this movie was based on the Time Machine. So today I found out. Today I learned TIL. And in that movie, he has a watch that Mr. India is like. It's a superhero character because of his invisibility powers. So I don't exactly remember the plot. So it's like maybe his dad was working in it, and it's similar to that Peter Parker Spider-Man thing, where his dad does all the research and then he reaps the benefits after his dad dies.
It's not the plot of Spider-Man, but alright.
What? Wasn't his dad working for?
No, he was raised by his aunt and uncle.
Oh yeah, I know, but then his dad does this much of the spider research, right? In the lab, or I think that's somehow kind of the plot for.
Maybe that happened. I don't know. I haven't seen all of the Spider-Man stuff, but I can't remember that. So I'm either showing myself up as a not very committed nerd, or.
Okay. Anyway, no, it's fine. Anyway, it's in the most recent Spider-Man movies. Okay, not the most recent. I mean, that's of course Tom Holland. The previous one. Garfield, what's his name?
I don't know. I watched the ones from when I was a teenager, and I watched the ones from now, and then I missed the one in the middle.
Okay. Oh yeah, I watched that one as well, of course, because Maguire. We were both Tobey Maguire. That was a good one. That trilogy. I mean, it hasn't. Some of it hasn't aged well, but especially the third movie, it's kind of cringy. But I love
Bit.
that. I love that trilogy. It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
But the second one, the next after that, in during the early 2010s, I think Andrew Garfield played Spider-Man.
Mm,
Okay, in that they kind of show his dad as working in his dad and Harry
mm,
Osborn. They
yes.
were his dad. They were like colleagues or something, and they
Mm,
work on this spider. They research on spiders and kind of genetically modifying them and all that. And his dad records his like maintains a journal or something like that,
yeah.
and he leaves that behind for Peter to find out. So the point was coming back to Mr. India, similar to that. Like their parents did all the work, and then the kids grow up and become superheroes based on that. So it's something
Nice.
like that. So his dad develops this technology where you wear that watch and then you press a button or something, and you become invisible. And the only weakness is he's only visible when people wear some red rose tinted glasses or something like that, red
Mm,
or when red light is projected. So if in a room where there is red monochrome light, like those
mm,
rooms which are used to you were used to develop photographs,
yeah.
so his powers don't work there, so he's visible. But in broad daylight, he is kind of uh, invisible. So that was the plot of that movie. But oh, I ended up talking about Invisible Man, didn't I?
Mm.
I wanted to talk about Time Machine. I don't know what happened there. Man. Okay, sorry. Apologies.
Well, we'll talk about Invisible Man and then we'll use our time machine to go back to
Oh wow.
Time
Okay,
Machine.
we could do that. Oh, but that was so okay. Such a bad mistake. Okay, Invisible Man, 1897, 2 years after the Time Machine.
Mhm.
Okay, so have you read this then?
I haven't read this one, but I
Okay.
did see the movie that came out
Oh, I haven't
early
watched that as well.
2000s.
Right, yes,
maybe?
yes.
Might have been called Hollow Man.
Yo, okay, I've watched the trailer.
Yeah.
watched the movie.
Was it Kevin Bacon? Maybe. And
don't
I've
know.
seen the really old one that really freaked me out as well.
Uh-huh.
That was very good. That was very, very good.
Okay. So what do you think? Is that like? Do you think? I mean, that's one of the things of one of his prophecies that hasn't yet been realized. But
Yeah.
like
Well, we
the
can.
episode showed, people are. I mean, they're kind of still experimenting with it.
We're sort of getting there, aren't we? We've got refractive.
Yeah, I mean, I know,
Surfaces.
I like how magicians do it, right? They make things
Yeah.
disappear where they kind of refract light to go around the object, and that's how
Yeah.
you get that feeling like that object isn't there.
Yeah.
So they use smoke, they use various stuff to make light go around. So that of course is there. I mean, even this technology to getting it to the bare basics is the same thing. You're
Yeah.
basically changing the direction of light to make it seem like that
Yeah.
object isn't there, and you're just seeing what's behind it,
Yeah.
or what you perceive or what you imagine should be there instead. Like they in
Yeah.
that episode they say something like there's a mirror and then light is reflecting,
Yeah.
but if you place an object on the mirror,
You can see
you,
it.
you can see it. But then
Yeah.
when they place that the nano kind of cloak around over the object, it gives that to the human eye, it appears like it behaves like the light is coming off the mirror, because
Yeah.
it's directly just reflecting. So we imagine, like we assume that object isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same as bending the light around,
Around, but
but
it's yeah.
they said something like they slow
It
the speed of light or
compensates.
something, but I didn't
Yeah.
really understand because they didn't explain it properly in the episode. But
they
I'm
didn't.
curious. I want
They
to
were like-
read more about it. I didn't understand what they meant by slowing light, and I don't. You can't really slow light because light has a
You can make its path
constant speed.
longer. I think what they mean is they made its path longer.
Yeah, but then the graphic, the visuals that they showed was like they like a curvy thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
So it was very unclear the way they portrayed it.
I was watching weirdly I was watching Avengers Assemble last night, and there's a bit where, I mean, spoilers, but it's an old movie now, so there's a bit where the flying station lifts and they turn on I think they call them the refraction panels, and they start reflecting back, so they're hidden among the clouds. And I was thinking, because I knew we were doing H.G. Wells today, and I was thinking, oh yeah, so that, I mean, we've had loads of development since, but that's based on a modern technology that's sort of mirrored in H.G. Wells's work. As well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've also got things like the cloaking device.
Where have I seen that before? No, it's the 4 p.m. alarm.
I know. You're telling the robot off.
Yeah. Lately, it's been doing its own thing where I say it to stop, and then some it does not do that every time, but some of the times it's like, sorry, I don't understand. But then she stops. I'm like, what didn't you understand?
Yeah, clearly you got the message.
Yeah.
I was rereading a thing I wrote yesterday, entirely off topic, but you know, I wrote a short story a while ago about an AI, like a home assistant, you know, like the home hubs, like Alexa.
Yeah.
And she went a bit mad and started eating people. And
start doing what?
She started eating people. She converted herself to biofuel and put a biofuel sump in the basement and started luring people into the house using various home hub tricks and got them into the basement.
Okay.
And for my Patreon thing, every month I do a letter from a character, and last month was letters, or rather increasingly panicked memos from the CEOs of the company as this unfolded for them. It was great fun. I was just reading that. I was rereading it before I came on, so it's in my head.
That sounds like a very brilliant idea. Has it been? Has anybody followed on that? I mean,
probably, but
digital assistants going rogue.
There must be something on Black Mirror about it, because that's that kind of show where
anything something like that. Like, I know of. Like whenever there is about stuff in the movies about technology going rogue, they usually use humanoids and stuff, but an invisible digital assistant where we cannot see what's going on. But then if that AI goes rogue, that's kind of scary, right?
Well, yeah,
because it's so behind the scenes, like you said. We don't know what can happen.
They're everywhere. They're completely everywhere. Exactly, I really wanted one. And I mentioned it to our friend Heather, and I was saying, well, you could do it this way, or you could do it this way. And then I thought, well, what happens if? Because we were talking about the service where you give people a code and they can come into your house. Your smart house will let them in, so they can put your shopping away. And we were discussing how scary that is in terms of somebody is therefore inside your house. Even if they're on body cam, it's a bit unsettling. And then I was like, well, what if the house wants to eat them?
Yeah. I mean, these days, so much of our technological, home appliances are synced with the digital assistant. So if that AI does go rogue, it totally controls us in a way. Like it can turn off the lights, and we are blind. We are walking blind because we are so used to saying, you know, Alexa, turn on the light or something like that.
Yeah.
And if I didn't want to name names, I ended up naming. So yeah, if Alexa does go rogue, she'll be like, yeah, I'm turning off the lights. I'm I'm turning off your refrigerator, or I'm randomly opening the garage door, or letting
It's
people in, or
yeah.
whatever.
I mean, there's some horror stories. I don't know how true they are. And by horror stories in this instance, I mean things in the press rather than fiction, about that sort of thing happening. But I don't.
see. Okay.
Or people hacking them. But I'm not sure how true that is.
Wow, that's some of this stuff is so scary. It's something that only when you keep, the more you dwell on it, the more paranoid it makes you.
Cautionary tales.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we were talking about the Invisible Man.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I mean,
it was me.
Like it's kind of related, because digital assistants are invisible.
We're writing our own science fiction.
Yeah. So where were we? I think you were talking about the cloak.
Yes. Yeah, and you've got the stuff, not just the refractive stuff on the more recent films.
Oh yeah, you said
Star
something
Trek
about
and Star Wars. Yeah.
Avengers. You said something about Avengers, where they use that refractive panels to give the impression of there's nothing in the sky, but then there's actually an object,
like a station thing. Yeah.
That's so cool.
I love that. It's one of the things I love about science fiction is I love that we can make the things that were only imagination a few generations before. We can go, okay, well that's interesting. I wonder if that's possible. And that is a very cool thing.
Yeah.
It's like a fictional R&D department.
But the more I don't know if we had established this at the start to people who are watching or listening, as I am coming from the place where I have no knowledge. I mean, I haven't read any of these works, any of these books, and then Lauren has. But then the more I have been, like today we are on day 3. The more I look at these, I mean, I also haven't watched the movies that are based on this. So I realized that how much of how little of science fiction I have been exposed to. So I was like, this morning, where I was just casually brushing my teeth, I was just thinking, and like I was just looking back at why haven't I watched, I mean, leave alone like read, I have watched science fiction so much. Maybe I like it's a genre that I have not pursued or tried to what's the word?
It's not one you've consumed much of.
Yeah. Even stuff like Avengers, those I haven't watched all the Avenger movies. It's not something that I know. Maybe I don't like. I don't know,
but then Batman's still science fiction.
Yeah, Batman.
No, you like you like the DC stuff rather than the Marvel stuff, but it's still in the arena.
It is, yes. Like yesterday we talked about the multiverses, parallel universe, and all that. I mean, in these 3 days, I've enjoyed this talk so much. That is the reason why I've been wondering in off stream, like why have I been away from science fiction for so long? Because it sounds so interesting and cool. Somehow I haven't read books, I haven't watched movies based on stuff of that's so cool. I mean, it's also good because there's so much content for me to look forward to now.
Yeah.
To read and to watch, and that also makes me happy in a way. Like there's the entire world for me to explore. So awesome. I'm in my 30s. So yeah, let's move on from Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Okay, let's use that time machine this time accurately to go back to the actual novel again, the one that we started, and then I kind of ruined it. So 1895, he talks about time travel, and this is 10 years before Einstein's 1905 is year of glory, the Annus Mirabilis, the year that Albert Einstein published 4 scientific papers, 2 of them on relativity, which kind of took the world. I mean, people still took another decade to understand what he had published in 1905. But still, 1905, because he eventually ended up getting the Nobel Prize in 1921, I think, 16 years after. So even he was ahead of his time. But let's talk about H.G. Wells, who was like 10 years ahead of Albert Einstein in predicting about even because I haven't read the Time Machine, so you should tell me how technically, how much of technicality it goes into.
Well, he describes it through story. So okay. I think what he does with the Time Machine more than being, so he doesn't say the refractive panels. What he does is he has him build a chair. The image in my head is the one from the film, which is it's like a chair with the big circle that spins, and he's got levers and dials. It's almost
in
like
the episode, the one that
balloon.
They showed, was it from the movie based on his?
Yes.
They show something like like you said, there's a salon chair, similar to the chairs that are in those hair salons and barber shops, and so he's sitting on that, and there are 2 kind of I don't know what that's like a
spinny thing.
Yeah. That kind of goes and then he travels through time, or whoever sits in it travels through time.
Time-honored tradition of showing us that something is sciencey by making it spin. So he explains the principles, but he doesn't explain it scientifically. Okay. So by the end of the book, you have an awareness that time isn't just something that happens, it can also be a direction, which is what he's trying to get across with the time as a 4th dimension thing.
Yeah.
That
was amazing though, that he could imagine, like I think the phrase and the words in the words of, again, I'm sorry, I need to start writing down the names of the people who speak because I keep saying the speakers, and that's disrespectful. But one of the speakers, I'm sorry, tomorrow I'll try. One of the speakers used the phrase, he was a man of, he was a creative person as well as a man of science. And I kind of disagree, because even men of science need to be creative to come up with stuff. At least, so much of creativity goes into these inventions.
Yes.
That both across science. I don't want to be racist between chemistry and physics there.
Multidisciplinary.
Across science. So like you said, he was the one. He was able to imagine time as a 4th dimension. Before Einstein at least put it on paper. Maybe there were people before Einstein as well who were imagining it, but he was able to give it like a much rounded look and make a theory out of it. Coming back to the Time Machine, from your memory of the plot and from the book, and is it like what does it involve only forward travel or also going backwards in time? Because time travel is like, there are 2.
I think in this case he only went forward, and he was so frightened by what he found, he returned to his own time and then didn't do it again. Again, it's the model of the cautionary tale. But the society he found is a reflection, or an extrapolated reflection, of the society he was living in. I know in the documentary it said that it was an an extension of the upstairs downstairs thing, where you have two different classes, and one is an underclass that serves the overclass, and that in the narrative the Morlocks are the underclass, but they are farming the overclass. And I'd never seen it that way. I've seen it as, in a way, we've regressed, but it's the elite who are still controlling things. It's just that they've become the Morlocks rather than them being the underclass who've risen up. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a very long time since I read it. I think I was about 14. So I may have completely got that wrong. But yeah, he is a very pessimistic writer. We were talking about Philip K. Dick's paranoia and the way that often death and endings come up in Shelley's work, but also hope and life. Yeah. For a lot of his writings, Wells is also very pessimistic. I think mostly because he considers very minutely human nature, and almost every single time when he considers the what if question, he comes to the conclusion that the answer will be, we will do the worst possible thing that we can. So in the case of the time machine, it's not the traveller who makes the worst decisions, it's the Morlocks themselves, and it's how we need to view our changing society, and so on. So for me, the time travel one, apart from making people think about time travel as a fourth dimension, time as a fourth dimension, and the possibility of travelling through it, for me, the commentary on the society is a stronger theme from that book.
Got it. Yeah, that. Okay, I didn't. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I was only focused on the science. That's interesting though, because have you watched these? What's his name? The one with two first names. Ran George. Ran George's YouTube channel, in which he has a series called something about the 90s.
Oh yes.
In his videos, so it's like he pretends that is a reporter from the 90s who has traveled to 2020, and he reports back to the studio which is still in 1995, and the conversation is between the TV journalist in the studio and the presenter who has time traveled, and I know it's like they're funny to watch, but also very, if you dwell more on it, kind of very it's satire in a way that it makes you think, because he talks about how social media has taken over, and each time he tries, but the 1995 TV presenter cannot imagine it. The stuff that he's talking, he says about smartphones, like everybody carries their phone around. I'm like, what? The 1995 guy is like, what? I don't know. And then he says there's something called Twitter now on the internet, and everybody can talk to everybody. He's like, what? And even he can't grasp that concept. And one of his most recent videos is where he talks about the COVID situation and some of those things as well. That's an interesting thing though. I mean, when you travel forward in time, and I know Back to the Future didn't really do justice to it. They didn't really. Their notion of future was. I know. I'm being too harsh on a film that was like is a 30-year-old or something, but still, I was not too impressed by their version of the future. What was it? 2015, right? In the timeline. Back to the
Yeah.
Future. I think they traveled to 2015. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was 1985, so it was always the 5. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is fun though. I mean, okay, so the science part of the the sciencey stuff about traveling in time, like the episode also mentioned, there are two ways, right? Two concepts to it. One is, of course, the one that we already know and which Einstein put forward is the twin paradox, or like the closer you travel to the
Yeah.
speed of light, time slows down. And this is proven. So this we already know so far, even though haven't been able to achieve it yet, because our propulsion systems are not uh,
They're not
as
there yet.
yeah,
They're
not
not
there
quite there
yet.
yet.
Yeah, so we only know in theory, and we know it to be uh, true, or even like we haven't got there yet with our technology, but we know we can. So the thing is, I think the twin paradox is like one twin stays behind on Earth and the other twin travels on a
Yeah.
spaceship that travels close to the speed of light. So he returns back 20 years later, and then but he has aged only 12 years, while his twin brother has aged 20 years. Like 20 years has
Yeah.
passed. Uh, and I think the twin paradox is like he goes away from Earth for 10 years, and then he travels towards Earth. So something I'm not again, it was a long time ago I
Mm.
read about it, so I don't want to say stuff that is incorrect. But this again, so this is something that Einstein talked about. The other
Mm.
is, of course, the stuff about wormhole. I think this is what they I think Interstellar used it. The movie
Yeah.
Interstellar, traveling, warping time, space time, such a way that you take a shortcut,
Yeah.
and that allows you to go forward and back, because it's the same wormhole. So you jump through it to go forward in time, and then you jump through it again to come back. Uh,
Yeah.
and this is still only in theory. I don't think it has. I mean, we haven't achieved. I mean, even at the microscopic level, I don't think we have. I mean, yesterday we talked about parallel universes where we s- they said that, like, if electrons can be in two places at once, why
Yeah.
not humans? Just like that, I think even this, but even then, I think even electrons are not
Yeah.
known to travel at speeds where time changes.
Yeah.
So this part of this is still only in theory, the jumping through wormhole stuff. So that's open to imagination. But the third part is grandfather paradox, which is
Yes.
traveling back in time. And this has like science has not come anywhere close to even
Not yet. No.
yeah, so far. And I find that interesting. I mean, I think it is very recently I learned about it, the grandfather paradox, where like you go back and kill your grandfather, and then
Mm.
whether or not you exist, but you
There's
already
a
do because you went back and killed your grandfather.
yes.
um,
So you can't exist, and then you can exist, and then you can't exist, and then yeah.
yeah.
It's dealt with great aplomb, perhaps,
Uh-huh.
by Terry Pratchett. As one of his books, the wizards find themselves back in time, and the wizards are the kind of people who approach the grandfather paradox by going, well, yeah, but we're fine, so clearly it worked.
Mhm.
And they keep the poor physicist, Discworld version of physicist who's trying to explain this to them, keeps
Yeah.
going on about, but yes, but if you accidentally tread on an ant and that ant was going to prevent something that prevented something that then means your grandfather died, you won't be born. And all they take from it is that he wants to kill his grandfather. All the way through. It's like, oh, we should just
I know, right?
keep an eye on Stibbons and make sure he stays away from his grandfather.
That's funny.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh wow. I love that. Yeah, that's funny. Talking about grandfather. Yeah, what's it with you and your
Yeah.
and your hate for your grandfather? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I never thought of that. It's
Mm,
funny. That's funny. Uh, but again, there's another YouTube video I think where somebody. I mean, if I find it, I link it in the this video and in the podcast when we upload it in the description. It should be there, where it's explained in detail with when each time you go back in time. Uh, this is an overlap with yesterday's episode. You create a
mm,
parallel universe, so
yeah.
it's like, so you're not going back in time in your own universe. So when you go travel back in time, it's in your in a parallel universe where you kill your grandfather, but in that universe you're not, obviously you're not there.
Yeah.
As in, you're now, you have taken the place of your grandfather because
Yeah.
you have traveled back in time. But if you, and when you go forward in time in that the same universe, it create you
Yeah.
create another universe. So
Again,
it's
like
like,
Back to the Future.
yeah,
Like in the first one where he goes back and he meets his father and he almost interrupts his parents getting together and therefore nearly
yeah, they do
stops
that
himself
thing
from
with the
existing.
photograph
Yeah.
and then the slowly
Yeah.
fading away and fading back and fading into reality. Wow, yeah, I had forgotten that. Yes, yeah, but they don't specifically, they don't spell it out as a
No.
parallel universe. But uh, but yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in that YouTube video, he spells that each time you travel back or forward, you jump through, you jump onto another universe entirely.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's a nice video. When I find it, I'll link it. Uh, so that's about the grandfather paradox. I think I wanted to say something else. Never mind. Oh yeah. Okay, I got it. So yeah, I think uh, I don't know. I forget how exactly they phrased it, but I found it interesting that this they said something like this was the first time uh, he brought time into, into focus
Mm.
in a in something, in a literary, in a work of literature,
Yeah.
because time is basically the one thing that everybody has the same of. uh,
Yeah.
because you could have wealth and resources every on all in different proportions, but then time is something that, it's universal.
Yeah.
Everybody has, across species, across it goes at the same pace. And so when you, and uh, if if and when we we tame it, like we find a way to mess with that, then the possibilities of that can
Yeah.
go are unlimited. You can do
Yeah.
anything, and that's one of, and he used this pessimistic his attitude to say, like, after that it's just destruction.
Yeah.
Once we learn to control time,
Yeah.
like, you could do anything with it. You could go back, you go forward, and then uh, we can't, it cannot be controlled once that
Yeah.
technology becomes a reality.
It's a
That's scary.
yeah. Yeah, because he focuses on choice.
Yeah.
Like in the Island of Dr. Moreau, which is another one of the really famous works, is it's the choices that not only the corrupt doctor makes, but it's
Mhm.
the ingenue, who's the person who's witnessing it all, everything that he chooses to do, and everything that the uh, creatures choose to do.
Yeah.
And he's always coming back to this idea of choice, and he always comes back to not just we will always make the worst choice. He comes back to we will likely make the worst choice, but we don't have to, and that's
Yeah.
the important thing. Um, yeah, the two things that always stand out for me for H.G. Wells, from his body of work, is one, the prediction of an apocalypse of our own making.
Yeah.
So instead of just something wiping us out randomly, that we end up essentially with a nuclear holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the first person to see, I think, even outside the scientific community, possibly even within the scientific community, they weren't thinking about it at the time. It's when we first started realizing that atomic energy was a thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to paraphrase Avengers Assembled, since I watched it last night, most people were looking for a warm light for all mankind.
Yeah.
And he saw, well, if there's that much energy, someone's going to use it to try and kill someone.
Yes.
Because that's what we do. That's
Yeah.
what humans do. And it's fascinating that one of the people involved with trying to prevent atomic weaponry and one of the people involved with trying to create atomic weaponry both read that story, and that was where something started ticking for them in their heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other one for me, we haven't touched on War of the Worlds yet, which is that's the one.
We haven't. We are coming there soon.
That's the big one for me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, I mean, okay. So I think that's about time machine and time travel and all that. We already did Invisible Man, but the year after, between Time Machine and Invisible Man, H.G. Wells wrote The Island of Dr. Moreau. Moreau, is that how?
Moreau.
Moreau. Okay. So this is about a mix between animal and human. I forgot what the word was that was used, that he used.
He was using the highly dubious practice of vivisection to do it, rather than modern cloning or anything. He was literally cutting up animals and sewing them together.
Yeah. So the visuals kind of reminded me of Frankenstein.
Yes.
Yeah, that was so good. I mean, like, where have I seen this before? I'm like, oh, it was just the day before.
Moreau
with Mary
is
Shelley.
very much a sort of a Victor Frankenstein kind of figure. He's one of those people. Although he does take a certain amount of responsibility in that he keeps them on the island. He doesn't just abandon them and then run.
Yeah.
But he thinks he's a god. I think is the main thing that you get from him.
Yeah.
He certainly thinks he's superior.
It's safe to say, I mean, that Michael Crichton was influenced to make, when he was writing Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Because that, it's like the Doctor. He plays God.
Yeah.
What was his name? Man, it's one of my favorite movies, but I forgot.
It's gone from my head. I love it. It's gone.
But yes, Richard Attenborough's character likes to play God.
I'm gonna have that in my head for the rest of the day now.
he spares no expense at playing God. But yes, that's similar. When you said that, I was immediately reminded of, because dinosaurs on an island, creating new animals through cloning and okay. But coming to reality, like the episode said about the prophecy coming to reality, and they said something about sheep with human who are injected with human cells to develop human compatible organs that can be transplanted, that can be used for transplantations, like livers and liver and kidney and all these body parts. I was not aware of this, and this is already a reality. That was, for me, I was like, okay, that's cool, but I see what you are also hinting at, because that it can go bad fast.
Yes.
For now, it is being controlled and used, trying and.
Did you hear a few years ago? We started doing it with leaves as well. One of the most incredible things I've ever seen is that they were growing valves for human hearts in leaves, using chlorophyll, which is very cool. But the thing that I remember most is maybe 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer ago, they were growing replacement ears on the backs of mice. And the process didn't really disadvantage the mice because they were captive mice. They spent their whole lives, being captive.
Yeah.
And after they weren't killed to remove the ear. After the ear was removed, they just had a small scar on their back, rather than, the whole, like in the sheep case, you'd have to kill the animal in order to harvest the organ. But I remember the ear thing was very cool.
I think I've heard of this before. I've seen somewhere. Like when you say I can imagine. I have some imagination about.
I read it in New Scientist, I think, but I haven't read that for a very long time.
Like growing an organ on the back of not exactly an organ but tissue that can be later used. Yeah.
Because this is making me think of the film The Island, which is a very good film, which you think is maybe a futuristic thing where there's all these people in a sort of perfect society, but it's very controlled and they're all very childlike. Like they don't have they're really excited at new words they find in the dictionary, and they're all adults, but they're like, oh, I found a new word, dude, and then they all try it out, and it's kind of adorable. And then you realize that actually what they are is the second chance. So rich people have paid to be cloned and have their clones in this facility, and when one of them is hurt, the clone is they're taken off the island. They're told they're going to this new paradise, or they're taken to the island. I can't remember which way round it was. Oh, to the island. Yeah, we're going to the island. It's wonderful. And what he actually finds out is that they're murdered and their organs are harvested and used for this person.
Wow. Okay.
And that and two of them are like, well, we're not doing that anymore, which is the point of the film. But yeah.
I mean, I like the idea, but I can also see how it can, like we already talked about digital assistant AI going rogue and all that, how this technology can also backfire, where if we are not careful of what we are, humanity, we tend to get too excited too soon with the stuff that we discover or invent, and we're like, oh, let's and we just end up just spoiling our own work. So they briefly told about, like they said about something like the sheep also has had developed brains with human-like brains. So, and that's that's not very. Yeah.
It did, but it didn't change their behavior. Which
was it didn't. Yeah, but so far, but it's like early humans, right? Maybe they'll start learning by observation, and we don't know. But that then brings ethics and stuff into, because we don't know what we are clear, and if they are, because right now there's that again that thing about about that debate that always exists.
Should we?
Yes. Yeah. Like is it fair? Like often that I think the argument that people who promote veganism and all that, they said that they have feelings, they are their own, they have opinions and feelings, and how advanced are they? But like, are we, at this stage in our evolution, are we right to still look at them as just food and all that? And in this case, we are looking at them as just body part creating creatures.
They're still harvestable.
Yeah,
we're seeing them as a harvest rather than as creatures with
Yeah, with
feelings
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah,
Living beings with, yeah, with feelings and
yeah,
emotions and individual as individuals.
yeah,
um so yeah, that all that ethics and stuff, it's a very messy debate. uh,
yes.
but yeah, I love that idea though. So but I'm unsure of where I stand on it, uh now that I think of it.
Mm,
Just, just having, I mean, again, it's also that other debate about with the size, right?
mm.
Somehow when I think I'm okay with them experimenting on mice, but I'm not okay with sheep and bigger cattle. So
It's
why is
strange,
that?
isn't it? Yeah. I think it's because we see bigger things as more human. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't remember where I was reading it, but I saw something the other day which said, the majority of all animal life, if well, more wildlife on this planet is an insect, but we're perfectly happy to kill an insect. But as soon as it starts looking cute to us,
Yeah. Yeah.
we
It's
start having a
like,
problem.
yeah. Yeah. And also, I think it has to do with the size of the skull, the size of the brain, and all that, right? The closer they are, I mean, the bigger they are,
I've no,
we,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, we
The more we
feel,
recognize
yeah,
ourselves,
we feel closer to them.
yeah.
Um,
I've noticed I have hated slugs and snails my entire life. I've had a huge, I still find them repulsive, if I'm honest. Really hate them. I'm from a family of gardeners, so killing slugs and snails has just been a part of my life.
mhm.
Um, and since I got Calcifer, my cat,
Yeah,
I've started noticing that much slower, different physiology entirely. Snails seek out, they investigate the world the way Calcifer does sometimes. In
really.
the way that they go and smell and they go and look and stuff. And I've suddenly gone, oh, but I can't put down poison for you anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now
yeah,
I'm rerouting them to the front garden. They can eat whatever they want there. Of course, they'll make it back around, but it'll take them a while, and they might as well eat while they're at the front.
yeah,
um, I'll probably change my mind. It's been a few years since I've done a full crop of greens.
yeah.
I'll probably change my mind the first morning I wake up and all of my plants are gone. Because that's usually the point where I'm like, nope, no more tolerance for this. But
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that divides us from them is society, really,
Yes, yes.
is the the past evolutionary tree.
Yeah,
And should we keep them down?
yeah,
Not that I'm advocating snail overlords, but
yeah. That reminds me of this this one thing that I did like 10 15 years ago when I was a teenager. We had this outbreak of bed bugs in our house.
mm,
uh, there was like, it was rampant. There was like too much. I mean,
mm,
bed bugs are kind of those things like you don't see it, right? It's
yeah,
always hidden under the fabric, and it just, you only get those bites.
mm,
uh, and the pain, I don't know, it's something in their saliva, I don't know. It's like
yeah.
you don't feel it when they are biting you, but then
It's
you
just
get
later.
that pain, yeah, pain later, and that reaction comes later, and then by the time you get it, they are nowhere to be seen, and then you're like, what the hell, what's biting me? For the longest time, we didn't even, I mean,
Yeah, you were like,
we didn't even know it, we had a case of bed bugs in the house. We kept thinking, are there mosquitoes around, what's biting? And and it's also the thing where different not everybody has the same reaction to a bite as well. So for my sister, she would develop those, what, those thing, when there's a bite, the
yeah,
skin
like a
swells.
little welt or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So she would have that all over her hand and leg, and we'd be like, why is it, why are why is the mosquitoes only biting you, and
Yeah.
it's not biting, because me and my sister, we shared a room, we had this bunk bed situation. uh so I was like, I'm just sleeping above, And but I'm not. Why is that? I mean, we looked at so many things. Is that because I'm closer to the ceiling fan and all that? And then at some point we are like, the point is we didn't even know that about the bed bug at that
Yeah.
up until that point. And then finally we were like, oh my! When we found out about it, and we called an what is it, exterminator? What's
Yeah.
the, yeah, the guy who comes and sprays all over and to kill uh, the infestation.
Yeah.
But okay, the point is, I remember I captured one bed
Mm.
bug. Um, After that, I just somehow I found one that had escaped the spraying. I
Yeah.
found it on a shirt or something in the closet, and I remember putting it and putting it in a plastic kind of jar about the
Yeah.
size of my hand, and I hung it from the ceiling in the middle of the room.
Mm.
And I would watch it every day. Just that one bed bug, because at that point I had come to hate bed bugs more than
Yeah.
I hate cockroaches, which is
Yeah.
something. uh, and I had hung it from the middle of the room, and because it was a transparent, it was at the eye level, and I would constant, I would spend hours watching it. And I just wanted to know. It's like that's that. I was just curious. I don't know what was my end goal there, but I was just curious what's going to happen, how long it will survive, and you know, I think it
Yeah.
lasted. It was alive for a month because I didn't feed anything, because I didn't feed it. It was just I remember punching holes or something just for its
Mm.
respiration. But other than that, I think it lasted for a month. But I watched it as it grew weaker, and because of there was no nutrition. But this small an insect, man. I
Mm.
I remember I went from going from hate to genuinely being curious, and by the
Mm.
end of it, because I watched it slowly die. By the end of by its life, I had grown sympathetic to it,
Yeah.
genuinely. As I watched it, I think it laid some eggs as well, because
Mm.
there were these tiny, I watched its babies come out, and they were all over in that container. I think one day when I came back from school, my mom had thrown it away. She got fed up of my experiment. But
Possibly she was worried about a second infestation.
true, that as well. Yes, of course, that was always there. But I had been, I mean, I was careful. I had hung it
Mm.
from the ceiling, away from all the thing, in the middle of the room at a height of like a meter and a half.
Mm.
But the point was, this thing that we don't even, I mean, we don't even know if how much we know insects have a neural network, but that does not even qualify as a brain
Mm.
in its official definition. um, the point is, yeah, like you said, when, like, the more you observe, the more connected you felt with the snail and the slug.
Yeah.
Just like that. I felt so connected with that one bedbug that I had captured. But a month before, I was like, kill them all,
Yeah.
because they suck our blood and all that.
It's. I think it's also you have you feel that they've invaded your space,
Yeah,
even if what they're just doing is feeding.
yeah.
And also, I mean, in terms of bed bugs, there must be an element of the possibility of spreading disease
Hmm.
to worry about in the back of your mind.
True.
Whereas with slugs and snails, it's mostly I will come home and all of my lettuce will be gone.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. But
yeah,
that's it's the same, right? I mean, either you affect me directly, or you eat up all my food, so you need to
yeah,
go.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that it's that same thing where people have this infestation of insects that in their farms, in the fields. uh what's that thing,
Locust.
the locust, yes, yeah, yeah. So uh they need to go. But
Yeah,
they are doing, they're just looking for food.
yeah,
uh if you go down, you imagine yourself as one. You're just looking for
yeah.
food, but then this giant is spraying chemicals to either kill you or to make
Well,
you go away.
Locusts are particularly interesting because they are actually mutant grasshoppers, and they're triggered to become locusts when there isn't enough food.
Oh,
So
okay.
normally they're just hanging out, chilling, doing the normal thing, and then they turn into this sort of they change color and their eyes go red, which is really weird from the point of view of like the whole of the science fiction canon of zombies. They turn into mindless
Ah,
zombies, and then they eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. So yeah, it's locusts are very strange.
yeah. So they're like triggered grasshoppers.
Yeah, they are triggered grasshoppers. And once one triggers, its hormones trigger everyone around it.
Oh,
So it just takes one.
wow.
It's interesting.
Also scary.
Mm.
Because if that's happening to on a bigger on bigger, not just insects, say like mice or something.
Mm.
uh, I think there must be science fiction related to that as well.
Oh,
Where,
absolutely.
yeah, because mice is one of those like the foremost animals that we test stuff on. So inject something into mice or rat, and then it. I think Stranger Things, right?
Yeah.
Did something with rats.
Yeah. That was yeah.
Because I
No
remember
no
like
spoilers though.
this. Yeah, it starts getting this, it getting very uh, like a monstery
Yeah.
thing, but on the smaller size monsters. Oh, that's scary. But yeah, coming back to sheep with human organs.
Yes.
So that's where we are, or at least we were in 2011.
Mm.
I haven't, I'm not in tune with technology in the biology field,
Mm.
or what progress has been made in the 10 years since. So I don't know where we stand currently, but it's interesting to think of that,
Yeah.
or where we can go, where we should go. Hopefully we are wise enough to come up with regulations before it's
Yeah.
too late, and it stuff goes out of hand. Hope we don't let that happen.
Yeah. I think returning
Don't
to
want all of H.G. Wells' prophecies to come true.
exactly. Exactly. I think the thing that he always stresses is that you've got to have wisdom, but you've also got to have kindness.
Yeah,
And without those things, you're screwed on
yeah,
on a global scale.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Okay, so moving on from the island of Dr. Moreau. How did you say that?
Moreau, yeah.
Okay, okay. Always, I don't know. So that was 1896 and 1897. The next year, he wrote The Invisible Man. We already covered that. And the year after that, in 1898, he wrote The War of the Worlds,
Mm.
which you have been waiting for so long. So
Well,
take
first,
the floor.
so if anyone doesn't know what the War of the Worlds is about,
Mhm.
go watch or listen to one of the many adaptations. There was a mediocre film when I was a teenager that came out that was all right. It was pretty good, did it pretty well. But yeah, there's a
Okay.
musical. There's a that it's one of those hit musicals that everyone loves. I hate it. And I hate it because it was overplayed to me. There was a time in this house where for 6 months all you could hear is "No, Nathaniel, there must be more to life," and I'm done. I'm done with it.
What's the name of the musical?
The War of the
Oh,
Worlds.
it's the same. Okay, okay. I thought it was something
It's
that's
got the name of.
inspired by.
I think it's got the name of the director. So it's so and so's The War of the Worlds.
I see. Okay, but it's a
Um,
direct adaptation, though.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
It's
got it.
it's about the theory that you're just minding your own business and then suddenly an alien race wants this planet as a resource, so they come down and they decide to get rid of humans. They start harvesting us. They
Yeah,
start destroying everything.
yeah,
Um, and it's one of those ones that's so applicable that you can just keep updating it and putting it in a different time. And
exactly. True.
my favorite story about the War of the Worlds, which is the one I've been dying to tell you since yesterday when I remembered about it, is that in 1938 So H.G. Wells was still alive at this point,
Yes.
1938. On the eve of the Second World War, Orson Welles, no relation, the dramatist, and a team of writers and artists put together a radio show. Now, it wasn't a new thing to dramatize something as if it was happening. So, using news reports or what sounded like the interruption of a broadcast to tell a story. And certain coincidences, certain happenstances meant that when people were listening to this broadcast, they missed the part where it was fictional. So they presented this broadcast of the War of the Worlds as if it was happening. So from the point of view of the narrator. And they had, as you would, updated it to be with 1930s technology in places around New York where it was being broadcast from. So you had this minor warning, and then you had a news update saying an airship was landing and that people were excited they were going to go to it. And then a musical program starts, and the musical program is interrupted, and then suddenly everything's on fire, and there are these things on three legs coming out of everywhere, and it made quite a lot of people panic. The level of panic was greatly exaggerated by the press for about 6 weeks after. On the night, people got scared. They rang the station, they rang the police. CBS tried to take it off the air. They managed to not to, but about 45 minutes in, they put in a second break that said, "This is fictional, guys, calm down." At the same time, a town called Concrete, which no one had ever heard of before in America, the power went down. So at the moment where they were like, "Wait, are we being invaded?" all of their power cut off. So they must have been terrified.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, the American press were like, "Oh, you did this on purpose to really upset people." And he was like, "No, it's not even a new thing. We just did it. We thought it would be fine.
Yeah.
And mostly it was fine. But you guys keep telling people that it was a world, a nationwide panic, and it wasn't." And there's a wonderful interview between Orson Welles and H.G. Wells a few years later while the war is happening. It's about a year into the war, I think. And they're talking about it, and H.G. Wells is like, "Yeah, but it was just a prank. I mean, clearly," and people responded as if it was a prank. A few people
was it a prank? I mean, I like that how creatively they did it. Like,
yeah. Well, I don't think they intended to frighten.
Yeah, it was not intended as a prank.
No,
as in, but
it was Halloween.
Yeah. Okay. But it was it's clever though. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe really if I was alive in 1938, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated it as much.
I've heard the broadcast. It is quite unsettling, but
yeah,
I think
maybe I would not have found it as funny, or I would be like, "That's not cool, guys."
I don't know. I think it was because it was the year before. Everyone was primed for there to be a war, so some of the people ringing up didn't realize they were talking about aliens, and I think everyone who realized they were talking about aliens went, "This is fictional."
Yeah.
In the same way as if we started hearing it, we go, "Wait, is this real?" But if you miss the part, if it was just people invading, my immediate thought at the moment would be, well, Russia really has been building up its military presence in the Arctic lately, and this kind of thing. I would go, "But is it?" And then I Google it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which obviously they couldn't do, but what they did do was go and contact people who did know. So it was less panic and more sort of, "I'm just going to check, just so I can sleep." Yeah. Except for everybody in Concrete, bless them, who couldn't. Probably had
that must have been scary.
Yeah.
I mean, you listen to that, and then then
everything's off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pitch black. Yeah.
They always like, maybe it's time to go into a bomb shelters and stay there for the night. We don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But okay. So again, coming back to War of the Worlds, though. I mean, this was what, 1898. To imagine an alien invasion, I'm just thinking of the level of how imaginative H.G. Wells was at this point, because this is before the discovery of flight as okay. At least I mean we know that we have a
Mm,
separate episode on a different podcast where we talked at length about flight up until Wright brothers. But still,
mm,
this is 1898, right? Before the Wright brothers,
mhm.
and surely before jet propulsion technology and all that. So there's we don't even like the flight. We don't even have flight as we know it.
Yeah, we did
Back
have
in
balloons.
we do have just exactly we just have balloons at that point in 1898. So to imagine an alien race descending from the sky must have been that's like
It wasn't new.
it
It
wasn't
wasn't.
okay.
No, the scale of it was new. The idea that you could just be minding your own business and then woof, everyone is here.
Mhm.
We'd had the concept that there might be life elsewhere and that it might not like us very much for a long time. Because I've been reading the Edgar Allan Poe collection.
Yeah.
He wrote a story about a hot air balloon experiment. And in this one, the hot air balloon kept going up until it left our gravity and then went into the moon's gravity. And he found a colony of people on the moon and he lived
Okay.
with them.
Okay.
And he was writing
That's
in the
cool. Okay.
first half of the 19th century. So
Yeah.
when did Poe die? 1830s, 1840s, something like that.
Mhm.
So, you know,
Oh, that early.
we've
Okay.
had that idea for quite a long
Got it.
time.
Okay.
But
Because I was of the opinion that like I get that they have imagined life on other planets, but we are still not technologically that advanced to even imagine having the technology to travel. Imagine traveling between two planets, because of course we don't even have air travel yet. So to imagine space travel at that point for me was like mind blowing.
mm,
But yeah, okay, this is nice. Okay, they imagined traveling by hot air balloon between planets. That's
yeah.
that's cool. Yeah. Okay.
I suppose you have a concept of ships. And if you've seen hot air balloon, you can go, okay, well, what if there were ships in the sky?
Hmm.
Because so you can start going, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, one of the things I find fascinating about it is you never really see the aliens. You see their machines, so they're very impersonal.
Okay. No, I'm
Um,
not. I don't know the story about. I mean, I interrupted
yes,
you while you were narrating it. So yeah, please continue.
yeah.
I mean, I
Oh,
don't know the story.
it's from the perspective of somebody who is at the initial contact site when everything
Okay.
starts going off.
Okay.
And you follow them as they try to escape and they try to find family members and people that they care about and try to get away from stuff that's happening.
No.
And
Okay. So the
it
aliens are
keeps.
from which
We
what
never
planet?
know.
We don't know. Okay.
They don't bother to
They're
tell
just
us.
extraterrestrial life that has just
Yes.
they just
Yeah.
descend upon Earth. Okay. And
Yeah.
start
It,
randomly killing people or just
yeah. Not
okay.
randomly, quite systematically exterminating the human race.
Oh.
Um,
Okay.
some of them are harvesting people. They're in these big tripod machines where you've probably seen a graphic of this at some point. It's sort of like a saucer with three
Yeah.
legs.
I mean,
Yeah.
I saw it, the one that they showed in the episode,
Yeah.
and they mentioned that this was the first time H.G. Wells or anybody for for a for a fact talked about a direct attack on civilians.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes. Rather than
that's the
them
phrase they used.
focusing on
Military wars and
military.
wars
Yeah.
between between
Yeah.
soldiers. There was like civilians dying, so
Yeah.
not out of disease, but you know, an
Yeah.
act of war.
Because he was
Uh,
a pacifist as well, so I guess he was always concerned with the human cost.
hmm.
Um,
So I was like, I wonder how this was received in 1898. I don't know.
it's one of the ones that stuck with us, certainly. And I think because we'd come out of the Boer War, we'd had lots of wars. We'd been invading everywhere, as you know.
Yeah.
The America and the Western European states
Yeah.
were having peace at home.
Yeah. But there
And
was
more
growing
more
unrest in
peace
the
at home.
colonies and all
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
their peace at home was beginning to shatter, much like now. Actually, it was beginning to feel a bit unsteady,
Hmm.
and I think probably War of the Worlds is a reflection of that.
Yeah.
So I imagine it was one of those ones that goes, oh well, that really makes you think. But isn't it fun as well? It's one of those rollicking adventures. But I don't know how big it got straight away because I haven't bothered to check.
Yeah, because like I of course am not aware of what was going on at the time in even in media, and but still to to extrapolate war between nations and different
Yeah,
different societies or people on earth, to extrapolate it to war between two worlds, for me
yeah,
it was like, okay, somebody did that way back in 1898 was, of
yeah.
course. But if there are already people that predated him, or people around him were also doing it at the time,
Well,
then
they were
even
more.
then it's then it's still pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh, and they were more going, well, isn't it cool if there would be someone? They weren't going, what if the someone wants our stuff?
Hmm.
You know. Well, the major thing about War of the Worlds is we don't beat them. They don't win, but
Hmm.
we don't beat them. What stops them is their immune system. And
Okay.
obviously they've never been exposed to any of the bacteria or the viruses on Earth.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Okay.
so
Yeah. I remember seeing
it's
that. Yes.
a random collection of pathogens that just takes them out.
Hmm.
Um,
So it's
and you
not weapons that
no,
they are
our weapons are
that
completely
don't kill.
useless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they try, and then things go wrong. I can't remember if this is in the book. I do remember this being in the film. There's a bit where people are trying to get on a boat to cross a body of water to escape from these things,
Hmm.
and the narrator and the people with them are trying to get onto this boat, and they don't make it on,
Hmm.
and they're so like, oh, we're gonna die here. This is awful.
Yeah.
And they start moving off towards in another direction, and then of course it's a boat, it's a big target, so they
Yeah.
see it as it
Yeah.
bursts into flames and everyone in it is killed, and it's that sense of helplessness against a superior firepower.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. So for once the question isn't what have we done to ourselves, the question is how do we respond,
Yeah.
and the answer is of course as best we can.
I mean, it's amazing that he was able to put himself in the shoes of the alien, also to imagine how they are responding. That's
Well,
nice, because usually
especially
it's like I mean, of course, I'm not, I have zero experience in creative writing, but even then, if I were to write a story, say, I would spend most of my time in in the spending I spend most of my time inside the head of the protagonist, than my perception of the antagonist, or the villains in my story would be how they react to my actions. I'm not too keen on what they are going through personally, or what they are facing, and
yeah,
it's just what I do and how they react to it.
yeah,
But then it seems that that he was able to, at least in this particular story, uh, when he writes about what destroys them eventually,
yeah.
like he turns the tables, and then they is that how it is? I mean, I haven't.
You don't get anything from their perspective.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I think probably he's thinking of the centuries where the British have gone out to conquer places, and the only thing that's been really holding them back, because of the technological differences and because of how doggedly evil we were at times, were the pathogens.
Yeah, this is exactly what was going through my mind, but not
Yeah.
exactly British. I think I was thinking of Spaniards in Central America, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's similar. People,
Yeah.
Europeans, when they went to other continents, they faced this initial where
Yeah.
they didn't know what's there, and they took some time to get used to thing and get
Yeah.
build their immunity. And
But also at the same time, in terms of Spain, you have that thing where obviously the smallpox is wiping out the natives,
yeah, so it
which
goes both ways.
which you don't get in War of the Worlds because they're isolated in their machines. So he's thought of the distance that they need to be
Yeah.
at. Yeah. And it's not even human pathogens, it's just random pathogens. It's like bacteria on leaves and stuff that's in the air. But yeah.
Wow. It appears that... Okay. I'm impressed, man. Just
he also
so much detail.
The thing that he takes you through as well is, again, it's that how would humans respond thing, is you meet a variety of people who are responding in different ways, who are from different backgrounds.
Yeah.
I think the one that sticks with people the most is the one from that song, No Nathaniel, which always... One of the reasons that's always in my head is because I have a nephew called Nathaniel. So every time I hear my nephew's name, I'm like, no, Nathaniel!
When did the musical come out? I mean, what
it's been a while.
Era is this musical from?
I feel like it might have been the 80s.
Okay, I see.
But I may be wrong. I only came across it in uni. But obviously, because I don't like it, I've tried very hard not to find out. But yeah, there's the Nathaniel character is he's a preacher, and he has lost all faith in God and all faith in everyone around him. It's made him violent towards himself and towards others.
Yeah.
And so that's what he says the readers were. There's a series of people who are completely ordinary people that you would come across every day, that are normally quite well put together, but who are faced with this appalling situation, and the choices they make. It's always choice in the cautionary tale.
Yeah. Okay. Should we move on, or wait? Before we move on, I think we didn't talk about the prophecy from that resulted from this body of work. He talked about heat rays that the aliens used, which was 15 years or 15-20 years ahead of laser technology, which is similar. That he talked about a device that is able to cast light, which generates heat energy and used to destroy the object that is on the other end of it. Which now, of course, like the episode also showed, was is being experimented with in laser weaponry and using lasers to detonate. I think object. I think they said, which also I was not aware of. They said that so many major military nations are experimenting with using lasers to intercept missiles while they're still, before they reach their target.
Yeah. I mean, Tesla was doing that kind of research in the 20s and 30s as well, I think.
That was his... I mean, he called it... I think he called it heat rays, but then... that's, of course, we know it as laser.
I was trying to look it up, but I can't remember the name. I think it may have been Socrates. There was an ancient Greek inventor who is rumoured... He was born in Syracuse. Like, I've got bits of information. He was rumoured to have built a heat ray, a death ray, what is referred to in the classical literature that way. That he directed the sun's rays against enemy ships from the lighthouse of Alexandria and set fire to them
by using mirrors and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
And that's
those magnifying lenses kind of thing where you focus the light. Oh, wow.
So H.G. Wells will have had a classical education as well as a scientific one, because one of the things we know is he was always reading the most cutting edge journals because he was fascinated by it, which is why he got onto the possibility of atomic energy right at the start of when we started thinking about it. But also because he had a classical education, he probably would have heard of that, which has now been proved to be possible. What was I watching? I was watching a thing about it. Oh yeah, Blowing Up History, which I like as a program, but it's a very repetitively narrated program. It is intended for people who don't know archaeology, so I spend most of my time yelling at it. But they did a really interesting experiment. I really do. I'll turn it on and Neil will be cooking and he'll be like, "Oh, you're watching Blowing Up History?" Because he can hear me going, "No, I'm sorry. I think that you'll find that happened because it's in Egypt." Like, it's not surprising that this is sandy. Because they're all like, "What? An amazing detail has been revealed about this thing," and I'm like, "What? The amazing detail that you have revealed is it's a rock." They're like always overwhelmed. They have to present everything as fascinating, and they keep going, recent research, and I'm like, well, I knew about it 20 years ago, so it can't be that recent. But apart from that, it is a really good show. And this one, and there's a British inventor and scientist, and his name has gone out of my head. I've seen him in loads of different things. He has amazingly wild hair, and he has steampunk goggles, and I kind of love him. And he did this experiment with the heat ray. And different lasers and stuff. He used an LED light. It was the Library of Alexandria episode of Blowing Up History, if you want to find it. And he proved that you could see it miles away, because that's one of the things that's been said about the Library of Alexandria is not only was the mirror used to direct the light of the sun against enemy ships, you could see it for miles and miles. And it wasn't really... I feel like it wasn't just to do with guiding ships in safely. I think it was, this is a bustling market town. Come to our bustling market town. You can see our light. It's a massive billboard. But yeah, so that technology had been around for millennia. And it would be something that he would have had an awareness of. But we were just beginning to look at how we could do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think he must have gone... That must have been in the back of his mind when he was writing it,
But I was not, that's another of those things where, of course, he being the pessimist, maybe I am more of an optimistic person, because so far I've always been like, or at least I have not been aware of the destructive possibilities of laser. So far, I've always looked at laser as something that we have used for, like classic, surgery and, laser surgery, other stuff. Like we have lasers like in house.
CD players.
Exactly, yeah, CD players, to do all that. But then when they mentioned about laser weapons, laser guns and stuff like that, and I was like, that's because laser is essentially light.
Yeah.
So it travels at the speed of light, your weapon. And the moment they said that, I was like, oh shit. that's true.
That would be bad.
That's so instantaneous. It's like, so far the fastest we know of is like bullets. But even then we have bullets that break the sound barrier and all that. But still, light is instantaneous. The moment you hear, you press the trigger and that's...
There's no interval.
Yeah.
There's no interrupting the missile in flight.
Yeah. There's zero reaction time. You can't do anything. It's like once it's done, it's done. It's like you can't take it back anymore. I know you can't take back even the arrows and bullets that are shot, but still you can at least react to it like before it. There's a possibility that you can but in this case,
nothing.
And the moment it was spelled out in the episode, I was like, man, I hope we don't, laser weapons don't become a reality. I don't want that to, get down to a level where it's affordable to in the civilian part of the society.
That's an awful thought.
Because we already have a gun problem, and but once we have laser guns becomes a reality, we don't want to see that. Let's not go there.
Let's leave that one alone.
So like, okay, I this is one thing I hope we do not do more research on. Let's not, please. It's scary. It's scary.
Far too many ways to kill each other already.
Yeah. Too scary. So that was like, anything else you have to add on War of the Worlds before we move on?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it because of already the things that I pointed out, not just the before, even we talked about heat rays. Like I said, the thought of an alien species being able to travel between planets, and that
Mm.
itself was the most, I think, one of the most amazing things about a work that was in before 1900, pre discovery of flight. Um Fine, then we'll move on to the world set free.
Mm.
It is okay. This is what 1913.
This is
Like
the atomic energy one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think you briefly. I mean, you already. I think we
Covered. Yeah.
briefly. Yeah, we discussed about
Yeah.
this earlier. But again, the most beautiful part about this for me was how he imagined it. After Marie Curie discovered radium,
Mm.
uh, I, again, I don't know. I'm just basing off what they said about in the episode. Is that like H.G. Wells looks at radium and he goes, it glows, but then what's its power source?
Yeah.
And then he says, if it does not need a power source to glow, so what if there is something that does not need an exterior power source to
How
generate
powerful
energy.
would that be?
Yeah, how powerful would that be? And that is
What would we do with it?
the precursor to atomic weapons. And again that linking, going from radium to atomic weaponry, for me, I had never made that connection up until today. Because I looked at radium, I was like, okay, it glows in the dark, and
Yeah.
that's all I had always seen it as.
I think most people did, because I mean, the sheer number of things like even growing up, there was an alarm clock in our house that we just didn't go near that had radium, had like a bit of paint on the hands so that it glowed in the dark, so you could see it.
Yeah.
I recently bought a black light because I collect antique marbles.
Yeah.
And some of them have radium in, and you can tell if it lights up under a black light. Fortunately, none of them do, so I don't have to get rid of any of them. Well, you don't really have to get rid of them. They're encased in glass. It's fine, but it made me a bit nervous. So yeah, it was one of the it was the big shiny new thing, and I think he was one of the few people at the time going, well, you know what we do with big shiny new things.
Yeah, but yet to look at radium and think of self generating weapons, I mean self energy, self speaks volumes about his creativity. What, like 100 years before. Wow. But yeah, his prophecy came true sooner rather than later, just 20 years later, 20 or 30 years later, in World War II.
Directly influenced by his story.
Yeah. So like you already said, he lived to see it. He was a
he lived to be greatly upset by it, I think.
Yeah. Of course, I would imagine he would be, because he spent most of his life writing about how destructive humanity can be, and then to see it, see us doing that.
He presented the question to encourage us to choose the other option, and then there we were, just blithely going, "Yay!"
Yeah, that was. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I don't. I mean, the only thing I took from the world set free is, again, I don't know what the plot is or how it ends and all that, but I only know about this, where he looks at radium and he imagines atomic weapon. So that for me was the most amazing part of it. So anything else that you?
It's not one I'm hugely familiar with.
Okay.
I did know that someone who worked against atomic weapons and someone who worked for atomic weapons were both influenced very heavily by it, because that was the first time they went, oh yeah, it could be a bomb.
Yeah.
And then one of them went, cool, I'll make one, and the other one went, I should maybe try and stop this.
Yeah, I think recently I don't know if you saw it, but I think I shared an image. I think it was about a trivia question in the group chat, where Northwestern, okay, maybe getting it wrong, but some university in the US the site where Enrico Fermi did his the first
Mm.
test, where he successfully was able to create controlled nuclear reaction.
Yeah.
And that was again the basis on which the atomic bomb later became a reality,
Mm.
where the moment we were able to we learned how to control nuclear fission. We were like,
Yeah.
again, like you said, possibilities are limitless.
Yeah.
But thankfully, so far since 1945,
Such
we
weird.
have, yes.
We have listened to the warnings.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we have.
Yeah. And long may that continue.
Yeah, we have somehow controlled our urges to not self-destruct.
Yeah.
So far it's been good, and we have. I think, yeah, we've.
There's been some hairy moments.
Yeah, true.
There's that story of
There has
the
been.
Russian submarine where you needed the three senior officials during the Cold War. That you needed the three senior officials on board to agree if you were going to start
Yeah,
firing.
I heard this story recently somewhere.
And
Was it you?
probably. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of the ones I tell a lot. And there was this
Okay.
guy,
Then it's
one of the
interesting.
three.
Ah,
They'd gone out of radio contact, and the protocol was, if you're out of radio contact for a certain amount of time, assume the war has started. And two of them signed off on starting the war, essentially, because it hadn't started. It was a glitch. And the third one went, well, what if it's a glitch?
yeah.
And if that
yeah.
guy hadn't gone, no, don't blow up everywhere. I know that this is, I know that we need to prove that we have been attacked before we
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
If he hadn't done that, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And that's extraordinary to think.
Yeah.
You're
But
talking about chaos theory and the actions of one person. Imagine if you stepped on the ant that saved his grandfather.
so, but yeah, again, so for now, you have channeled it into creating energy. But even that has faced a few, disasters like Chernobyl and because-
Fukushima.
yeah, so because like we have learned to create energy, but then it can also sometimes backfire.
Yeah.
As we have not yet reached that point where it's entirely safe.
Yeah.
Like even now, I live in Aachen, where there's this growing movement because of the two nuclear reactors in the neighboring country, in Belgium, which is very close to in I think it's in Tihange. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's a couple of nuclear reactors in Belgium, which are apparently, contaminating the water, the underground groundwater, which is not very
Not
safe.
ideal.
Yeah, not safe. And the people of Aachen have been kind of protesting it for it to close down the two power
I
plants.
mean, at the very least, let's make sure it's not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we suddenly one day, we have a mutant race here in Aachen, and that'll not be.
No.
That's not
I
good.
mean,
That's not good news.
I imagine it would be more like Erin Brockovich kind of situation, but yes.
Yeah. All of a sudden, people of Aachen with red eyes, and I'm imagining locusts, but at the human scale. Oh, triggered
Be a
humans.
very different meaning for Siren Day.
Yeah. True. Okay. So yeah, that was about World Set Free, and finally we should move on to things to come. Have you watched this movie?
No, this one I don't know.
Okay.
This one I don't know at
I
all.
love the visuals. I'm assuming they borrowed it from the actual movie that he produced or co-produced in 1936, which is a Hollywood production. No, it was a British movie, right?
Yeah,
It was,
probably.
it was
Yeah.
not Hollywood.
We were big on sci-fi back then. Pinewood. I
Yeah.
think.
So it's okay. So it's okay. I remember thinking I haven't seen a British movie, any British production from that period.
Yeah.
Because I think, of course, USA was pioneering movie production
Yeah.
at that time. So I've watched Indian movies, I've watched American movies, but I have not watched British movies of the time. So maybe I could. I mean, that's a
I
good
mean,
starting.
you might have seen them and just not realized. Um,
Or yeah,
but
or
yeah.
that, yes, yeah. But then, yeah, I've watched very little of 1930s cinema. Let's admit. Maybe, yeah, that's of
Same.
course Laurel and Hardy, or Charlie
Charlie
Chaplin,
Chaplin.
uh, or maybe some of those classic movies
Mm.
from the 1930s. One, or like max five. So not the right person to, you know, say no, I have not watched British cinema, but I have not watched any cinema of that era. So, but the interesting point, I think I briefly mentioned before as well, like one of those things where this one of those works which end on a happy note. Uh, so I think this uh, is was this based on a book, or was this like a script for movie that he
I don't
wrote?
know. He did a lot of adaptations. I don't know if he.
Okay, even
I know he
I
was
don't know.
excited about cinema, but I don't know if he wrote specifically for cinema or if he adapted
Okay,
things.
okay. So yeah, even I'm not aware. The one only thing I was able to gather from the episode is that this is about biological warfare,
Mm.
and at least that is the prophecy that came out of this production, was a certain section of people releasing
Yeah.
using biochemicals
What year was this
as
again?
1936.
Ah, yeah.
But then it ends on a positive note where the human, or at least people who survive, come together and create a one world government.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was for me was a good, I mean, a nice concept, uh,
Yeah.
that I thought was for someone to think up in the 1930s. Um,
Yeah.
because even now in 2021, we are have I don't think we are still have made taken any steps towards it. So it's not a prophecy that I see coming true anytime soon.
Well, I mean, particularly from a British point of view at the moment, as we've just ceded from Europe, which is
Yeah, so it's like going backwards.
discussion for another day. Yes.
So
You
you're
know my
pulling
feelings on
away
Brexit.
from European Union. I
Yeah.
I always have maintained that the EU, I think, at least in Europe, the what the European Union has managed to pull off in the last 20 years is is probably the model that if the human race were to decide to move towards a one world government, would be the EU would be what we would base our model on, like
Yeah.
a common currency, or one government. Even though, like, there are where the countries are like behave like states
Mm.
within a big, and then the head of states are sit on the council or whatever that
Yeah.
is, where they you know there's joint decision making involved and all that.
I would say that to an extent, the federalization of the United States was similar, but I don't feel like their
True,
system is
yeah.
like we were discussing this the other day. You were trying to understand the electoral college system, and it's so vastly complicated that
It is,
I
yes.
gave up. I gave up
Yeah.
on that conversation.
I mean, of course. I mean, it's nice to on a broad scale, when you're zoomed out, to
Yeah.
think of what's the harm, one government ruling, controlling
Yeah.
the entire human population. What could go wrong, or what's.
Mm.
But then
All it takes is
the
one crazy
more,
person.
yeah, the more dwell on it, the more you sit down and think of
Yeah.
the logistics and how you can pull this off. It's not that easy.
I
uh,
always think of the Federation when you're talking about one world government from Star Trek,
I
because
have not
it's
watched
got that.
Star Trek.
Well, it's based around the idea that after the atomic holocausts of the 21st to 23rd centuries, they settled down and created one world government, and that became not just one planet government; it became several planets, and then more planets, and then it sort of became a multi-solar system government. Which I have to say I've always been deeply suspicious of, but I think that might be my sort of mining town background is not entirely trusting authority, that even if it has the best intentions, that's not necessarily what everyone's going to do with that power. But yeah, anyway. I always think of the Federation if I'm thinking of a large-scale multi-nation concept.
Because even if again, okay, hang on. It's 5:30 p.m. in my time zone. So should we, like, I know this has gone beyond. I mean, we've already been for close to 2 hours now. Should, like, I know there's not much left, but then we'll take a small 5 to 10 minutes break.
I need to start. I need to get off pretty soon.
Oh, okay. Then we'll close.
Because I think originally we were intending these discussions to be half an hour.
I know, but then there's, like I said, like I admitted, there's so much. I mean, at least for me, there's so much that I'm discovering every day. With like each author that we touch upon, the body of work seems to be increasing, at least for now.
Yeah.
Like we started with Mary Shelley, this was just one, and then yesterday we said the Charles Dickens of science fiction. This is supposed to be Philip K. Dick, and then today we are talking about the Shakespeare of science fiction, as he's supposed to be called according to his Wikipedia page. I know we already talked about yesterday, I mean, about these comparisons, which is like for marketing purposes. So that's another curious thing that they call him the Shakespeare of science fiction. Again, so like I was saying, I think when India, even let's talk about it, because that's one of the it's a young country, right? One of the young government systems. Even that, like we talk about the USA's government system being outdated or flawed for 2020 times, because it was way back in 1770s and all that. But even the Indian system, even though it's in the 1940s, as recent as 1940s, even that is like because we are 29, 30 states. But even that, in hindsight now, like it's flawed, because there's one thing about when it comes to these big nations. I know India is nowhere close to, like, say Australia or the USA or Canada, but still in terms of population, at least it's pretty up there, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm not phrasing it right, but we talked about in at least in the subreddit India r/India subreddit. I think there was a discussion where we talked about what's the opposite word of decentralizing governance, because when you are a big country covering a big landmass and a large population, it's difficult to govern at the local level.
Yeah.
Because
how do you allocate your resources?
Yeah, because there's so much, there's a lot of variety across the landmass and across the population. So you can't have one rule based on one section of people or one section of land, but then it does not apply, or it makes no sense elsewhere. So that decentralization is needed. So it's like those opposing theories where we would love to have one government, one world, one government, but then also there are downsides to it if that happens. So it's like it's
You'd have to
more
make sure
politics
that,
and
that no one was given priority over anyone else.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because even in the like on the outside, like I said, the EU looks like a successful model, but then when you look closely, there are cracks there as well, where people
Yeah.
blame. Up until now, I think before UK left, there was UK and Germany and France hogging on all the, because even though
Mm.
they source most of the funds come from these big countries, but they also uh, possess the most influence, the most
Yeah.
power, and so they drive the decision making. So if there was a one world government as well,
Yeah.
the rich states, or the rich like you said, rich regions would again be driving the decisions,
Yeah.
and the other lands would be like missing out.
I think the thing, it's it's a line from Hamilton.
Okay.
Uh, it's the oh yeah, Aaron Burr. That's his, I was like, his name is gone from my brain. I can rap it, but I can't say it. He says the Constitution is full of contradictions,
Yeah.
and Hamilton's line is, "So is independence." And I guess the thing that I always think is, yes, all of these things have a lot of problems, but they're not going to get better if we don't keep working on them. And nothing, what works for us in this year isn't going to work for us next year, because we're always changing. So it's one of those things that it's a process rather than an end result.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean, particularly about the larger something is, the more open it is to corruption on small and large scales.
I don't know if H.G. Wells thought of all this when, but I'm curious to watch. I want to. I would love. I am looking forward to watch things to come, to just see how it ends, because apparently it ends with this. Then I mean, it has this as an ending, as at least as he projected it as a happy ending, where we end as there's a one government ruling, as one democracy for the entire human race across all continents.
Yeah.
So I want to know, even though it's a 1930s ideology, and I would love to see how it turns out, at least in the movie.
Yeah,
that'd be cool, because I don't think there are many movies that did that.
Not at the time.
I know, at least even in Hollywood as well, they naturally they focus on their country's government and all that. There's not many movies that talk about, look at the global population, and even when aliens attack, like that's a running joke, right? We always talk about how come aliens only attack the USA all the time. Aliens only seem to land in America. So
the trope that really irritates me is, how come of all of the places, if they do land globally, how come the Americans are the only ones who fix it? And then you get this scene where they send the information out to other people and like, golly gee, we never thought of that. And I'm like, for God's sake, people.
Yeah.
People can come up with
just seem to land, and
simultaneously.
they'll like, take me to your leader, and then they immediately think of US president, and like, why?
Yeah.
Why not anybody else?
Why this is reminding me, it's not a sci-fi film at all. It's an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie from the noughties or late 90s called Eraser, and it's a good film. It's a decent solid plot. It's got some good acting in. It's of its time. It's got some clunky bits, but there's this wonderful bit where he's parachuted out of a situation. He lands in a scrapyard, and this little girl and her brother come up are like, whoa, did you see that? And they cycle up to him, and he gets out of his parachute, and he's like, where am I? And the little girl goes, Earth, welcome. It's just one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I love it. I would watch that movie just for that moment.
Wow.
Earth, welcome.
That's funny. That's cute. That's funny and cute
Yeah,
at the same time.
I like
That's
it when
fun.
they get something like that
Yeah,
in a film.
yeah. Okay, and that note, I mean, we would love to. I mean, should we do this thing where we both watch things to come and then we can do a review on Twitch someday?
I probably won't. I've got a lot to do like
No, not
in the next
immediately.
month.
I meant
But yeah, probably at
sometime
some
in the
point.
future. That'll be nice.
Yeah,
Because, like you said, it's science fiction and there's so
Yeah.
much to talk about. And
and as you know, I'm rubbish at watching things. So
yes, yeah. Maybe we could slide in things to come into one of your
Yeah.
watch list, and then I'll also watch it, of course, and then we
I
can
was
have
think
this. That would
I
be
was-
nice if you do that.
every time I think of things to come, and it just makes me think of the classic sci-fi film The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is a very good science fiction film, but very weird because it's of the time, and it's one of those metal tin man alien
Oh,
things.
I haven't watched that.
It's good. It's good. That
Okay.
one, it's odd
Uh-huh.
from a modern perspective, but it's good.
Oh, okay. That somehow at least the title. I don't know what the plot is about, but the title somehow reminded me of The Day After Tomorrow. I think that I kept saying that I haven't watched. Maybe I have watched a few science fiction movies, but they are not related to the three
Yeah,
authors that we have discussed so far. So
yeah.
maybe that's why I felt that I have not seen or read any science
Yeah.
fiction at all.
No, you will. There's loads of stuff that's been influenced by the because there's only 8 in this series, and
Yeah.
there's thousands.
Yeah. So Day After Tomorrow, I think, is similar. Is about the end of the world, right? It's those end
Yeah,
of the world
climate.
kind of
It's more of
movies.
a climate change one, but that's still science. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
that one I
talk
haven't
about
seen.
apocalypse and all that.
Yeah.
End of the world thing. That's also a subgenre of science fiction.
The disaster movie.
Yeah,
Post-apocalyptic disaster movie.
Yeah. Before we end, I could not. I know that, of course, like I always, keep saying, my reading up until now, even though I'm like close to 32 years old now, has so far is limited to Harry Potter and Goosebumps, and of course a little bit of Tintin and Asterix sprinkled on the side. But to draw from whatever little I have read, I could not help but draw comparisons between the Harry Potter, the magical world of Harry Potter, and the body of work of H.G. Wells. And I also am aware that we are in this point. J.K. Rowling is cancelled for her opinions and all that, but still, let's appreciate her, at least her.
I
World
don't
of
like the
Man.
word cancelled, but yes, I know what you mean. There is.
I know. I mean,
influence.
it's a very.
Yeah.
It's a very. I know it's a derogatory word.
No, it's a contentious word. It's not derogatory. The things that she's saying are derogatory.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always been quite a lot of crossover in various branches of speculative fiction, by which I mean fiction which questions rather than fiction which dramatizes. So fantasy, science fiction, speculative fiction in and of itself, paranormal stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because you the question that they're always asking any of these pieces of fiction is, what does it mean to be human? And they ask a different variety of sub-questions, like what would you do if, or what would happen if this happened, or should we do this as a species, or should we do this as a person? But you were always asking, what does it mean to be human? And you do get those in the Harry Potter books.
No.
I'll say they are highly
That also,
derivative,
but then for each body of, each novel that I came across, I could not help but think, for everything there was already it existed in the magical world as well. I mean, let's say for the time machine, there's something called time turner in the Harry Potter world, where you can go back in time, not forward, for some reason. But of course, I know the reason why, because it was easy to explain going back in time. for her.
It was all that was required for the plot, which is
True.
usually
Yeah.
why a writer does it that way.
Yeah.
So
So therefore, like she borrowed the time turner from the time machine. She borrowed the invisibility cloak from the Invisible Man,
mhm.
where the cloak is able to make you invisible. She did not explain the science of it, but
Mm.
because conveniently magic. uh, and then the island of Dr. Moreau, the animagus, where you are able to
Mm.
conveniently turn into an animal and back to man. And the War of the Worlds, the heat race, which is the Avada Kedavra thing, where there's a red flash of light, and instantaneously the person at the end of the flash of light is dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's for everything. There's 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 like it's borrowed.
Yeah.
It at least maybe not consciously borrowed from H.G.
And
Wells'
maybe not
work.
specifically from him,
Yeah,
but
or
because
that,
there's
yes,
been
too, that
much
too.
after, and
Yeah, but
these are all things that we've always wondered about.
yeah,
So
yeah,
although he was dealing with specifically the science of those things,
exactly.
they are
Yes,
things that we've
yeah,
had as concepts.
yeah.
But yeah.
And in this case, it's all explained by magic.
Yeah.
But somehow I don't know. Like I already said before, there was that disclaimer. Like my reading, what's the
Yeah.
word?
Your
Repository
yeah. I'll do.
is very limited. So
The library of works you have covered.
exactly, yes. The library of my read works is very limited. So from that limited, I could not help but notice the similarities.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so much of this is already in the Harry Potter world. The cloak, the animagus, and the wand, and it's so similar. So I could not help that. Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, we come to the end. Closing thoughts, H.G. Wells.
Go read it.
Yeah,
Or go watch it.
Go watch it. Go watch Things to
If
Come.
you
And all
if
that
you
movies.
can find the audio recording of the Orson Welles radio broadcast from 1938, go listen to that because it's
Okay.
really good.
I'm going to write that down. Or maybe if we find that, we can leave that in the links somewhere for
Yeah.
people, because even I'm curious too. I want to watch it. I mean, that I want to listen to that. If somebody has put that, if there is a podcast or maybe somewhere on YouTube, if we find, we'll leave it in the description. But speaking of movies that were based on, I can think, like I already said, Mr. India is all that I've watched. That was based on H.G. Wells' body, like of H.G. Wells' works. I think one other movie I came across, but then it was way back in 1902. Something about the moon. Do you know?
I don't know which. There's a lot of movies about the moon. You'll have to be slightly more specific.
A trip to the moon. A trip to the moon. But then, I think A Trip to the Moon I watched as a movie within a movie. If
All I've got in my head is the professor from Professor Calculus from Tintin going to the moon.
Yeah, no, what I mean, The Trip to the Moon, I think it was covered as a movie within a movie in the movie Hugo.
Oh yes. Oddly enough, that's what I'm trying to draw because it made me think of that too.
Oh, okay. So that's where I watched this. I mean, movies back then were only like 2 or 3 minutes long, because it took, even though just to make the 2 or 3 minute long movie, it took days or weeks to build sets, and because there was no computer graphics, imagery, and CGI, all that stuff back then. You had to physically create those effects,
make everything.
Yeah, everything was. There's no green screen, and now it's too easy to film inside the studio. But back then, you had to create all the effects. So yeah, so that's those two movies based on H.G. Wells' works that I have watched. I haven't read any of this. I look forward to read. That's how I'll be ending all these episodes. I look forward. Like Lauren said, I mean, it's nice. I mean, that's the how you turn a negative into a positive. I don't know. I don't think I've addressed this. Right? Like when I think there was that one moment where I said anything that you ask with "Have you read?" The answer is always no.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I think I said the answer starts with an N, and
Yes.
then you said
Not yet.
yeah, it stands for not yet, and then I was like that I was so I mean did not see that coming. And very recently I think I also listened to that in one of those positive mindset podcast episodes where where they said about for everything you're instead of saying I don't know, end your sentence with I don't know yet, or I don't know. I think they were talking about how you answer questions in an interview, where
Yeah.
instead of saying I'm not aware of this or I don't know, I don't have the skill, just that yet, adding that yet in the end of your sentence changes so much.
Yeah.
It makes everything so positive. It's like I don't know yet,
Yeah.
or so.
It's like the power of a teacher when you ask a question, and the power of the teacher when they say, I don't know, let's look it up.
Yeah.
Because it means that you can still learn.
Yes, exactly.
And that it's okay not to know, and it's okay not to have done something.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So the point was, even though I'm in my 30s now, I haven't read these classics yet. So I am looking forward to reading more of these, and that's where Lauren is helping me out. And every day I'm being introduced to these legends of science fiction. So
Also, it's
on
fun
that
to
note,
talk about.
yeah, that's true as well. So on that note, tomorrow, who are we doing
Tomorrow
tomorrow?
is Jules Verne.
Jules Verne. Wow. I think
So,
I've watched more than one movie based on Jules
yeah.
Verne, so that I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that. As we going live earlier than usual, right? Or was that next week?
That's next week.
That's next week.
Next
So
Thursday.
tomorrow it's the same time.
Yeah.
I know today we got delayed by half an hour, but tomorrow hopefully we'll be right on time. That
2-ish.
is 3 p.m. Central European, 2 p.m. UK, and 1 p.m. Universal. For anybody watching this on YouTube later in the day, for podcast listeners, thank you for listening. Yes,
Yes.
and stay tuned for the next episode where we
Yes.
talk about Jules One. That's about it. Okay. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Bye
Bye.
bye. Okay. Ending the stream.